Good luck, Harry Potter.
Well, cover me with eggs and flour and bake me for 40 minutes.
Hello, and welcome to Screen Masters with me, Bav.
And me, Fluff.
And this week, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be discussing the HBO TV series Band of Brothers from... Oh, crikey. I thought I had this in my head. 2008, I want to say?
Really? 2001.
2001? Really?
Yep.
Wow. I knew I was behind, but Christ, I didn't know I was that behind.
Yeah, I was like,
really?
yeah, very behind, like very behind.
I didn't realise I was that behind. But of course, before we turn to that, before we get to that, I would like to turn to the immortal words of Edwin Starr, and say, war, what is it good for? No.
Okay.
Come on, let's steam it.
I get it. No chuckle from me today, though, I'm afraid.
Okay.
It
was too obvious, maybe. It was too obvious. Okay, yeah. I'll accept that. All right. So, yes, now, there is something I need to discuss with everyone, because you know what? To coin a phrase from South Park, I realised something the other day.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I realised something the other day while I was watching Rise of Skywalker again.
Oh God, really?
I hate myself. I enjoy that film in the moment, you know. I'm absolutely entertained. I pop for the nostalgia. I laugh at the little snippy interplay between the characters, and yet I know it's a it's a vacuous chasm of a film with no stakes that is a retelling of the major plot points of Return of the Jedi, has nothing original or interesting to say, and is just designed to be a big bunch of member berries. And yet...
You enjoyed it.
It was starting on Sky Cinema, and given myriad other choices, I still chose willingly to watch it, and thoroughly enjoyed the next 2.5 hours. There's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Send help.
Given that we spent a good portion of a previous podcast tearing the last film to shreds in many respects, and you've now openly admitted that you really enjoyed it, so hypocrisy.
It's that thing,
hypocrisy.
Yeah, I know.
Hypocrisy.
I'm going mental in this. I understand why it's not good, but I cannot stop from being entertained for 2.5 hours when it's on. So.
Yeah, I have access to Disney Plus, and while it's up there, I've still not. I've since watching it at the cinema, I'm not in a rush to watch it, and God knows when I will.
I actually looked at Disney Plus last night, just as an aside, because a friend of mine offered a look at use of their details to have a look at it. So I looked in there, and of course, shit hadn't even occurred to me. Like I'd be able to watch Chippendale Rescue Rangers again, and Darkwing fucking Duck.
Yeah.
I am a little bit upset that Tailspin isn't there, but I can live with that. You've given me Darkwing Duck, and you've given me Chippendale Rescue Rangers, and all the Herbie movies. So that's an episode coming.
And the X-Men series, the Spider-Man series, Gargoyles. I mean, the
Spider-Man series. You see, because the X-Men series, I watched that about 5 years ago again. I watched it all the way through again, so I don't want to watch that again yet. But the Spider-Man series, that's a good shout. I didn't think about that one. Maybe we'll have to do that. And obviously the Clone Wars as well. That'll be good fun. I'm looking forward to going through some of that.
Foreshadowing.
Potentially. So, last episode, we were talking about what we'd watched, and there was one thing that we left to crack into the main episode. So, let's go back to that now. On Netflix, it is The Big Show. I have watched all 8 episodes, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
first half
episodes.
Of the season with my daughter.
Is it first half? I didn't realise it was just a half.
I believe it was the first half of the first season, but maybe it is just 8 episodes and they're going to leave it. I don't know.
I don't know. I imagine, given the success of it, I do think it's been rather successful around the world. I know that in Australia, just because Big Show himself put comments up of various fans around the world, you had people from England, Australia, America, a number of countries, all just kind of saying it was really family-friendly, fun, especially given the current climate and times and things like that, to just switch off and just enjoy mindless show. Now, obviously, I've watched it because I'm a wrestling fan, and I was like, you know what, let's watch this. It was on in the background. I mean, I'm not going to say this is the funniest thing. It's not for me. It's not tailored for me. I've heard other wrestling-based podcasts kind of tear it a new one, but at the same time, it's like, guys, You are not their target demographic at all.
No.
I understand their points on it, and they're like, because it's very Americanized in the way that it's shot, the way that it's storytelling, and the way that certain aspects have done. I've seen enough Americanized kind of stuff to know that that's the way that they do these things. It's all played up, but I was also very entertained. I mean, you've got a better interpretation of this, because not only would you have watched it, you would have presumably watched it with my beautiful, awesome goddaughter.
Indeed, yes, we watched it together because it's very much her show. She likes she's very excited about the return of the second half of the last season of Fuller House at the minute, which is like
that
June
was
the
the
4th
kind of
or something. So it's very, and obviously as you say, it's a, what do they call it, 2-camera sitcom, 3-camera sitcom, I can't remember, but it's that live studio audience feel. I'm not sure it was a live studio audience, I've got to be honest. For Big Show, it seems a little bit like canned laughter.
No. Yeah, that was canned laughter every time.
I've got to be honest. It could be funnier. I don't think the writing is necessarily bad, but fuck, Big Show really isn't very good at playing himself.
No.
He's only good, like, there's occasions when he's with his buddy in the gym and stuff, and he plays off him quite well. But other than that, he's really not very good. I also think the middle daughter isn't a particularly good actress. The younger one is fantastic, and she's hilarious. The older one is cool and sassy, but the middle one I just don't think is very good. I think the mum's very good though. She's an incredible, she really sort of tries to pull it together.
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, I know that I think the actor who plays his friend was Urkel, who is not a person I'm overly familiar. I know the name, and I could kind of recognize it from American previous TV. Again, the actress who plays the mother, I've seen her in a good number of things over the years. I think weirdly enough, the first thing I ever saw him was that 70s show way back when. So when she popped up in this, I was like, hang on, I recognize you from a number of things. So that was funny. Honestly, I think, like you say, the Big Show is not the best actor, and I think he'll probably attest to that.
I'd like to say that it's like the jokes are good sometimes, but he's just his timing is so bad that the joke falls short. Sorry, Karen.
I think his best scenes and stuff like that is, weirdly enough, where he feels most comfortable, where he's with, say, Mark Henry or Mick Foley. So when the other wrestlers come in, I mean, I want Mark Henry to be a recurring character on that. He was fucking hilarious. Now, I know that Mark Henry can deliver the goods because we've seen him way back when being Sexual Chocolate in WWE, way back when. So I remember those times, and I know that he's got the comedy chops, but he was so goddamn funny.
And Foley. Foley got a good couple of laughs out of it.
Yeah.
Again, like you say, it wasn't that it was the most amazing, brilliant joke, but it was his timing and his delivery. Because he does stand-up comedy, he gets it. He knows how to let the joke land.
Yeah.
So, that was the best episode by far for me, because, as you say, he felt the most natural. And weirdly, he can't play himself, but when he's Big Show, the character Big Show, and is performing as Big Show, he's perfectly fine. It's really annoying. It's like, just be you. Just be you.
Yeah.
No,
Stop
be
trying
you.
To be the happy kind of father,
what you think you
husband,
act like. Just be you.
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird.
We've seen you on TV for the last 20 years. Just be that character. Don't try and be a parody of yourself. It doesn't work. Just be a bit more straightforward. Yeah, I'm curious to see how it pans out. I don't think it's going to be the show that breaks the bank for him. But at the same time, he needs something to do.
And I didn't, like, as you say, I have warm feelings towards it. I will watch the rest of it if any more comes, because my daughter was invested and she identified with a couple of the daughters, because he's got 3 daughters in it. So she identified with a couple of them there. So yeah, I would watch it because I think fondly of it, but I'm not, at the end of the day, with a critical hat on. There's some issues.
Yeah. I'd say so. But again, that's the thing. It's I think during lockdown and things like that, we've knew that there'd be certain things we just watched because it's like, well, okay, I've not got a lot else to do. Let's watch this. This was one of those shows for me. I was like, it was not ever going to be on the top of my radar. I know there's a film called Main Event, I think. I don't know whether you've seen it.
Yes, one of the wrestling channels that we like have done a watch along with 2 of their people. Of that film. They did a remote watch along. It was Ross and Tom.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yes. If it wasn't Tom,
I-
I would be very interested. But I
Okay.
feel Tom for an hour and 45 minutes might be a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, I got maybe 10 minutes into it, and I
Oh,
had to
really?
turn
Is
it
it that bad?
off. I had to turn it off because it was too stereotypical. Okay, there's a school bully, and there's this, and there's that, and I was like, you know what? As much as I want to see the cool stuff with the wrestling, I can't be arsed. I can't be arsed with it. So
What
I
age is
turned
it
it off.
pitched at? I don't even know the certificate of it, actually.
I would
Is it-
probably say 10-year-olds.
So is it a
Yeah,
PG,
that kind of
do you
thing.
think?
Oh yeah, it would definitely be a PG. Yeah,
Okay.
you
I
could
might
easily
try and
watch it with
con
the
the kids into watching it. Then.
Oh god, yeah, yeah. I think the kids would find some enjoyment out of it, especially given our panache for wrestling.
Indeed.
And they know that we enjoy wrestling. They're not too enamored with it themselves, but I think they would find an enjoyment in it, and they might find an appreciation for wrestling after the fact as well. You never know.
True. And Keith Lee's in it, from what I hear. So,
And Keith Lee is in it. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
so I look forward to seeing Keith Lee. Okay. Cool. Interesting. All right. Let's crack into this meaty bad boy, and see how far we get. So yes, I am gonna throw this one to you again. This is one that I had not seen, which I think we discussed it in the HBO shows
We did, yeah.
episode. Which here you go. Let's see if I can remember back that far. Episode 6, I think, was the HBO shows.
Well
And
done.
I think
If that is
you
true, well
discussed
done.
it there. I think I'm right. I don't know why that one sticks in my head, but it does. So yeah, we discussed it then. I hadn't seen it, and it was one of those ones that I probably think, knowing me, I probably said, you know what? Not a big fan of war films and war things because I'm me. And then obviously we did a Christopher Nolan episode where I went on about how much I loved Dunkirk. So, typical me. Hey,
And
I
then
don't
you
like
suddenly-
westerns. By the way, the best Tarantino film is a western.
Yeah, and didn't you say like one of the best films you've seen in a long time was 1917 as well?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. But I don't
don't
like
like war
war
stuff.
films. No, but here you go. This is the thing, right? Because in 2001, that would have been very much on my opinion. Whereas obviously, as you grow, I get older, I realise that these things are stupid to say, and that actually maybe there is something to be found in any genre generally. So obviously, yes, I went back and I have watched all 10 episodes of Band of Brothers. So I am ready.
Cool, yeah. So for those of you who don't know as much, no, so Band of Brothers, as you say, was out in 2001. Now this did air both in America and in the UK as well. I think it was BBC Two. I think that it played here. I want to say.
Yeah, probably because it would have been Sky probably Sky Atlantic and that, and
yeah, no, they weren't really kind of about.
they didn't have a deal with
at that
HBO or
point.
anything back then, did
No.
they?
No. So I'm fairly certain it was a BBC Two one. I think that's how I originally watched it. I probably got it after the fact as well. But so yeah, it's a drama series based on historian Stephen Ambrose book of the same name called Band of Brothers, which effectively tells the tale of Easy Company, which was, let me just get this right, 2nd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division. So
I'm glad you've got that in front of you, because Jesus
I've
Christ.
got that in front of me. I'd never remember that. All I know is that they're the 101st or Easy
you see,
Company.
I'd remembered the
You get that after.
506th. That's the bit I'd remembered, the 506th Battalion.
So there you go. We each remember it in a different way. And so this story, as we go through it, and which we will, the story covers the episodes, and it basically discusses and shows them training, beginning training in the US, moving across to Europe, to Britain, getting ready to be deployed into Europe, ready for World War II, essentially. And each episode takes on a different. We discussed this briefly beforehand. Each one is episodic. There is the common thread of the war, etc., going through, but each one is episodic. It kind of focuses on different aspects of their training or the war itself or a particular battle. Now,
sometimes a character as well, I find.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
there are a couple that are sort of a character takes a main role, and you follow them for a bit as they go in and out of things. The one particular one that is why it sticks in my head. There's one that's absolutely incredible that I adored.
I think I know which one it is, but I'm going to wait. I think I know which one it will be. So yeah, this covers each of those men, and as you say, some of the focus will be on specific characters for some of the episodes. There are regular characters that run through the whole thing. There are some people. Anyway, the great thing about this, and I loved it right from the start, is the fact that they intersperse the dramatization of the story with the real interviews of the surviving Band of Brothers members.
Yes.
That was very poignant for me.
Mm.
Given that we're on a week on, I think originally we would discuss this, and because of lockdown and things like that, we never got around to doing this on time. But aim was to try and do this for kind of VE Day, because again, it's one of the reasons that we kind of looked at this as well. And so that was it. This was just phenomenal. When I first watched it, I was like, okay, this was Saving Private Ryan as a series. Now, everybody went raving about Saving Private Ryan. When that came out, the real gritty dramatization, especially at the Normandy beach landings and stuff like that.
It was that opening sequence, wasn't it? And how gritty and real that felt. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I know it's been parodied in so many things. But it's that opening scene on the beaches and things like that, and you just suddenly think, okay, the guys behind that want to go off and make a full series. How is this going to play out? Is it going to be successful? Spoiler alert, yes it was. So we touched very briefly, so we'll quickly, before we suddenly get into episodes, we'll touch very briefly on the cast. We have discussed this previously in the HBO podcast, which according to Pete there, or sorry, Baviev, was back in episode 6, so we'd encourage you to go back and listen to that and think, okay, are there any other good HBO series? So if you don't want to listen to the whole of this without everything being spoiled, have a quick listen, think if you like that, then watch it, then listen to this. So we've got the main protagonist very much is Damian Lewis as Dick Winters.
Yep.
We've got Ron Livingston as Nixon, his buddy Nixon. Scott Grimes, the fantastic Scott Grimes. I think he's always undersold at times in the things that he does.
Who is he? Character name?
He was Malarkey.
Malarkey, yes, thank you. That's it, yes. God, Malarkey's brilliant.
He is. He just goes on such a trajectory as the whole thing goes on.
He does. And I'm not even sure, without checking my notes, whether he actually gets an episode based on himself, but I feel he goes through a massive arc over the 10 episodes, and he's always there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
It's so clever.
And it's one of the things that they talk about in one of the episodes towards the end, like he's gone through this, he's gone through this, he's gone through this, he's lost this friend, this friend's been it, and that's the thing, it's all the harrowing shit they all have to go through. But we got Donnie Wahlberg as a Wahlberg, and you kind of go, really? And then you kind of go, actually, he's brilliant as Lipton.
He's really good.
He was so good. Trying to pick out a couple of others. Michael Kudlitz as Bull. He was fantastic.
Now, that raises a question for me. Where the hell did Michael Kudlitz go?
Because
obviously he was in this in like 2001 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I didn't hear about him again until Walking Dead. Where the hell did he go? He's good. He's really good.
I don't know the actor's career. I'm sure there's always shows in America that we're not necessarily privy to, that a lot of actors peer up in, and we're like, oh, okay, you were in that. I've never heard of that. Like The Shield or the
I know what you mean.
All that kind of stuff. So there was Neil McDonough, who we've seen in so many things. Again, this is a versatile actor. He was Buck Compton, who, again, another character going through some pretty harrowing shit. I'm not going to go through too many more because we could be here all day. Two more I'll mention, though, is Dexter Fletcher, who was Johnny. It's Dexter Fletcher. You always love seeing a great Brit in there. And then we'll just touch on him because he's in the first episode. Is David Schwimmer as Sobel.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
And you go from Ross on Friends to Sobel, and you're like, have you gone from a guy that everybody kind of loves in like the world's most popular TV show to a guy that everybody wants to see shot?
And I cannot imagine what that would have done at the time, because looking back, that was midway through Friends' run. Because Friends was 1994 to 2004. So that's smack bang in the middle of him being, as you say, Pussy Ross Geller, the wimpy wimp of the Friends gang. Yeah. And suddenly he's doing his best Ali Ermey impression. It's insane.
But again, I mean, the sheer number of guest stars that did little cameo appearances and things like that in this, was ridiculous. So we've already touched on, like, Dominic Cooper was in there, Jimmy Fallon of all people was in there, Michael Fassbender
God, yeah,
was
that hit. Now that one actually took me out of it for a minute.
Jimmy Fallon,
yeah, because
yeah, I don't
I know that again back then, like, because he did I love the Taxi films, the French ones, and they did a remake with Queen Latifah and him in like 2004 or something.
Mhm.
So I know he was an actor back in the early noughties, but of course nowadays, shit actor. But I only think of him as like exactly a talk show host or whatever, and I don't like him as that. So yeah, when he drove up, I was like, "Is that Jimmy Fallon?" No, it's not Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
Oh no, it sounds like Jimmy Fallon. Oh, he's as shit as Jimmy Fallon is. Oh no, it is Jimmy Fallon. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
But he's not in it for long, thankfully.
No, thankfully not. It's just a bit part. But yeah, we've got Stephen Graham's in there as well. Again, easily spottable. Tom Hardy, a very young Tom Hardy as well. And you kind of go, is that Tom Hardy? Yeah.
Most of my notes when these cameos have come up is blah 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 appears. He's 12. Blah 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 appears. He's 12.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Even Simon Pegg again is in there. I think this was at a time where he and Schwimmer were doing that film. Was it Run, Fat Boy Run or something?
Probably would have been. Yeah.
So I think because I think they actually appear in scenes together and stuff. But like I say, this is just a smattering of the great acting that's gone on in this. It's not all action scenes and things like that. It is very much the acting that goes on in it. So let's get into the nitty gritty. So the series starts off with, go on. I feel like you've got something to say here.
Just on the casting, something occurred to me while I was looking through, as you're watching it and all these people come in and out. Like, if like any famous black actor these days, if you look back, they were probably in The Wire, because all the best black actors were in The Wire back when it was done. I feel like this is the white actor version. It's like, if you're a famous white actor today, you were probably in Band of Brothers back in then. Like, because there's just everyone's in it, and like you say, even if it's someone who's a tiny little bit part or something, or a name that you don't know, you recognize the face, and if you go and look it up, you're like, oh yeah, shit, he was in that. Because it's I think his name is Kirk Acevedo or something like that is how you would say it. Acevedo, I don't know, but he was in Fringe, and I know him from that. So when he turned up, he's the one with the trench foot.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Later on, he gets trench foot. But yeah, you know what I mean? It's like you see these people, and he's not a big, massive actor, but he's someone that you recognise. You're like, I know that guy. And there's so many of them with that. And I found the same thing when I watched The Wire. I was like, I know you from something. And then you end up looking them up and going, oh yeah, shit, you were in this that I watched the other day. And it's just, but that's where they got their start. And like I say, I just feel that with Band of Brothers, that so many white actors clearly got a start in this. Or this was a big thing for them, you know?
Yeah, I've just checked it, and it was Joe Toya. I was like, I can't remember. It was somebody inside. Yeah, so he was Joe Toya again.
That's right, because it's Joe and Bill, isn't it?
Yeah,
who are
Bill
buddies.
Garnera or gonorrhea. Spoiling the series. So the series begins with Easy Company basically being shown at their training camp. I think at this point they're still in America. I think they're in Georgia. And so Sobel, David Schwimmer, is their first lieutenant. They're kind of captain at this point. Basically, taking them through the drill instructions, and he's a very, very strict, a very authoritarian kind of individual. He wants the best out of everybody, and he's not very nice about it at the same time. He basically sees that if he trains his team harder, longer, faster, stronger, that they will be the best team and they will be the best unit.
And sorry, carry on. No, you finish your point.
So it doesn't necessarily make him the most endearing of commanders. Quite simply, his men hate him. He really does it, but he goes out of his way to kind of pick faults. He'll like walk up and pick a bit of lint off of somebody's uniform and throw it, and he's like, okay, you've lost your weekend pass. And it's like, for a bit of lint kind of a deal, but this is it. He's very much an army man.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, I think he's it is that, as I keep saying, the Ali Ermey Full Metal Jacket drill sergeant trope.
Yeah,
that you know, essentially that performance coloured a lot of performances that came after it, of anything from interpretation to. I think my favourite one is probably Clancy Brown's version in Starship Troopers. His version of the drill sergeant, I absolutely fucking love, because he plays it a little bit tongue in cheek.
Kind of forget Clancy Brown was in Starship Troopers. Thank you for reminding me that. Oh my god, I forget about
that. Again, foreshadowing potentially for a future episode.
Oh, okay, right. Very well. I would be happy to talk about Starship Troopers. I love that film.
So do I, man.
So well.
Yeah, so sorry, I've lost train of thought there. My point was, I love that the way that they said they brought something to me that I've never seen before in these sort of things, which is why the drill sergeant does this. Why, as you say, that such tiny things are picked up on. And it was, I think he says it to someone, or someone, the two people are talking between each other about why. And it's so that that the guy stood next to you is just as fucking hard and dedicated and good as you are. Do you want to be out there with guys who are the top of the top of the top, so that if shit goes down, you are covered by the very best? Or do you want to just have the guys who, can't quite finish the run, can't quite carry the stuff, don't keep their stuff tidy? Because it all builds up and adds together to make you an excellent soldier at the end of the day. And that is something that they're very good at instilling in the first instance. And then I feel that you see that play through.
Yeah.
You see as they advance that the fact that they are that fucking good means that I don't want to say more of them survive, but you can see the survivors among them is because of the early training and the fact that they were trained to be that damn good and that damn perfect.
Yeah, and I think this is where the actual title of the series, the book itself, Band of Brothers, because effectively that's what they are in this instance of, okay, you guys are going to be a group of guys all together going off to fight a war. If you don't have your shit together, if you do not fight as a unit and know that the guy next to you in this foxhole has your back, then you're just going to be shit scared. But if you know that your team is with you 100%, that they've got your back 100%, that they're as trained as you are 100%, then you're going to have that confidence. And as you see, especially as this episode progresses, he obviously, Sobel kind of picks on a couple of different characters, intending to go, okay, you've got to go and run up that hill. I want you to go and run up that hill and back again because you didn't do it quick enough. So a couple of his fellow buddies start jogging along with him. They're not ordered to do it, but they do it along with him because they're like, if he's doing it, we're doing it with him. We're not letting him do it on their own. We're going to give him moral support.
That's it. You're exactly right, and that's where you see it coming together, isn't it? Where you see that sort of why this is like this. Because I've always thought that, why punish everyone for the actions of one person? But I get it after watching this. I get it because it establishes that brotherhood. And you do go, right, fucking hell, all right, you've got to go and do this on your own. Nah, I'm going to come with you because I don't want anything to happen to you. I want to make sure you get through this and you get back. And that is, as you say, the brotherhood. And it's all established really beautifully in this first episode.
So as the first episode progresses, each, they're continuing their training, they're getting out there and doing things. But what is abundantly clear is that Sobel is a truly, truly atrocious soldier. He may be a good drill instructor, but he is a terrible soldier and a terrible leader. And this is becoming more and more apparent. Now, there's a little bit, again, one of the good things about this show is that it isn't just very, very serious all the time. There are moments of humor. So we've got one of the characters kind of mimicking the voice of like the colonel or something like that. It's like, would you get him across that damn field? And it's hilarious because, again, humor needs to be maintained throughout this entire series, because if there isn't, it's all really miserable all the time. So I like the fact that there is a sense of humor.
I also think that makes sense as well, because if I was a soldier out in the field, you would have to keep yourself. You got to keep morale up, haven't you? You've got to keep yourself entertained. So you've got to have a sense of humor about it, about the situation, to be able to keep going, to keep doing the job. But like you say, he panics like hell, doesn't he? In some sort of instruction, some sort of drill test or something. that they're trying to do, and he just completely fucks up and is left to make a decision, panics like hell, can't make a decision, and then that bit where one of the other soldiers impersonates his boss and tells him just to get on with it or whatever. It's
he's like,
so
"Oh,
fucking funny.
It's like, oh, there's a fence in front. Well, cut that fence, get him through. No,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to cut that fence. You're in the wrong place. You've just let a bunch of cows out, and then they get a bit of shit for it, which eventually leads to a number of the non-commissioned officers basically walking into, to the higher ups' office and basically handing the notices in en masse, like a half dozen of them walking in and just basically giving a piece of paper saying, if I have to go to war with Sobel, I will die. I don't want to do it. And the fact that all of the non-commissioned officers do it is a huge sticking point for the boss. Like, he's not happy about the fact that his non-commissioned officers kind of are being in support.
It's almost a mutiny, isn't it? Exactly.
It's
a very weird thing within the military, but it's almost, you're mutinying against your commanding officer. This is bad.
The poignant thing is, as soon as they walk out, and then Sobel's walking in and kind of sees them walking out, at the same time, Winters, Damian Lewis's character, who's always very much in this episode, been at the forefront, been the kind of guy that they could go to, the kind of guy that they could foresee being their leader.
He's essentially like Sobel's number 2, isn't he?
Yeah, and Sobel knows that he's better than him, so he treats him like shit and makes him do the horrible jobs. But he's doing a horrible job. They all walk out of this place and they all salute him because they have respect for the man. And that's an important point. And then eventually it leads to Sobel basically being reassigned, told, sorry, you're actually doing too good of a job training soldiers. We don't want you out there. We want you back home training them all soldiers. Up. Which puts everybody's mind at ease because they think, shit, I don't have to jump I don't have to jump into a war zone with this loser who doesn't have a clue what he's doing. Now we've got Winters, a guy we have respect for, a guy we trust. So this was kind of in a nutshell. This is the first episode. Now, your impressions watching it for the first time?
That's not a nutshell. This is me in a nutshell. Help. How did I get inside this bloody great big nutshell?
Ah, Jesus.
What kind of shell has a nut like this? Sorry, I'm just finding my notes. So, this the first thing I want to say is shout out to Michael Kamen for the music, because I love a bit of Michael Kamen, as we've discussed numerous times before, largely due to his work with Metallica. But also Lethal Weapon soundtracks are amazing. I mean, this, like you said, this first one was really interesting. I'm glad that I got what I wanted because, yes, I hated Sobel and I was like, oh shit, if I have to spend the entire series watching him as the commanding officer, I am going to go fucking mental. So I was very, very pleased when he was removed from command. And as you say, it kind of comes anyway because you can see that Winters is the man for the job. They're just not sure quite how to maneuver him in there, and Sobel treats him so fucking badly, like you say, and even tries to court-martial him, doesn't he, for something that is just a jumped-up load of bullshit. But he wants to
reprimand him. He's like, "Oh, you do this, or you'll get a court-martial." And when is like, "I could do it." No, fuck it. I'll take the court-martial because I want you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah, because he also, I think, knows that if in a court-martial, all the facts are going to come out.
Yes.
And therefore, they're going to see that Sobel is a piece of shit who isn't very good at his job and that other people have been covering for him, or he's been making other people cover for him.
Yeah.
I was really happy with that. And I mean, I'm going to be honest, I didn't, obviously going into this knowing nothing, I didn't know what format I was dealing with at this stage because it starts, if I remember rightly, the episode starts with them being told, right, we're going to Britain.
Yep.
And then goes back in time and tells us the story leading up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course,
shows that Britain and their training there.
Exactly. Is that the second episode then?
No. This is the first.
No, is it all the first episode, isn't it? Yeah.
The whole first episode is their training.
Yeah, that's right. But it starts with them getting told they're getting shipped out.
Yeah.
And then goes back and tells the story up to that point, doesn't it?
Like, okay,
and then
we've finally
actually it turns out that point we saw at the beginning where they're told they're going is the D-Day landing that was cancelled and postponed for a few days later. So they don't go at that stage as well. but yeah, so I was that was the only thing with it. I was like, oh, are we just following this chronologically? I'm not really sure where we're going. So that was the only thing for me is what sort of structure we were going to go, and that takes a couple of episodes to come in if you don't know anything. I think, to be honest, because you just sort of as you go along, you realize, oh, you're just telling a chronological story of what they did, their progression from the start of the war to the end of the war, and picking key battles and parts that Easy Company were involved in, and it's cool. The only thing I did think at the beginning, because as you say, it starts with talking heads of the people who were really there. Because they pay it off in the last episode, I'm perfectly happy with the way they do it. But at this point, not knowing, I was sitting there going, "Who are these people?" Because they don't tell you the names of the people who were the talking heads at the beginning.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So they don't
It's not until
subtitle
I
it.
think
So
the
I'm
last
sitting there
episode, isn't it?
thinking, well, I guess this is Easy Company.
Yeah.
I guess they're members of Easy Company. But I love that they don't tell you who it is, because it then means that you don't know who's going to live or die as you go
Yes.
along. If you
Yes.
know that Dick Winters is one of the blokes talking, no, I'm not saying he is or isn't, but if his head is one of the people talking, then you know he lives, don't you? So it takes some of the stakes away from it. Because at the end of the day, this is still a TV show, so it needs to have stakes and consequences and, that sort of things for us to invest in. But yes, they do, thankfully, in the last episode, properly tell you who everyone you've been listening to is, so that I was like, yay, I finally know who these people are. And obviously, yes, it is Easy Company, the survivors of Easy Company who are talking. Yeah. But yeah, go for
it. So, I mean, again, one of the things that shone out for me on this, watching it for the first time, was again, having seen, Saving Private Ryan, the gritty realism of that war, the production from the costumes. I dread that they'd all kind of gone on basic training and things like that, so that they were instilled with the idea of, okay, this is what a soldier went through. Then you're going to go through the same kind of thing. I know that the same consultant, Dale Dye. I've seen him in a number of things. He popped up in Entourage, if you remember, as the submarine guy who was training.
yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, he was the guy who's like, oh yeah, Eric. If you don't want to. Anyway, we're digressing. So I knew that he was in it. He's also plays their Colonel Sink. I think it's Colonel Sink. He plays. He was fantastic because again he brings that gritty realism, and he's the guy that trained them all and was like, okay, I'm going to be the consultant, but I'm going to act and I'm going to show you what is great. Nice. I know from, again, reading stuff that a lot of the actors, for those individuals who they were going to portray and those that were still alive, they did get in contact with them by phone on stuff like that. So they got to hear their stories. And I think that was one of the things, like watching this first episode, it wasn't just a collection of kind of actors thrown in roles. It's clearly a bunch of people who've embraced this and look at this. I've read from loads of actors over the years. This was one of the most inspirational series and shows they've ever worked on because it was so passionate about that time of the war, and so much was going on that even today we still think about those kind of things. So going through that first episode, watching them go through the training, knowing that the next one is like preparation for them to jump into occupied France, essentially, you kind of go, I hope some of these guys make it. Which brings us to episode 2, which is them basically landing in Normandy. Now, again, for me, the beginning scenes of this is the planes going in. Again, I'm sure the CGI probably be a little bit more polished, but again, there's just that sense of gritty realism to it. Just watching the sheer number of planes and things like that heading into the skies and heading to France to drop all of these soldiers, and you just get these scenes of soldiers just jumping out of planes all over the place. Anti-air turrets blowing the crap out of planes left, right, and center. People dying left, right, and center. The commander of Easy Company itself, his plane is one of the first to be hit, resulting in Winters effectively taking command. But it's them all getting together on the ground. It's like, going through the aftermath of, okay, yeah, we're going to jump. And then they're all landing on the ground and then trying to get their bearings, trying to get some equipment, some weapons, basically getting some troops together to end up where they're supposed to be. And from this one, we've got majority of, I suppose, this episode is kind of from Winter's perspective, collecting a bunch of troops together, just scattered troops from different companies and from different regiments and stuff like that, and getting them to where they need to be. Again, it just shows his immediate leadership skills, because he's like, okay, this is where we're going to go. And when they're looking at night and he has to throw a tarpaulin over himself so that his light won't be seen, and all those little intricacies and things like that, he knows where he needs to be. And this was the bit that you kind of get the feeling that this is a guy who knows not necessarily what he's doing, but he's the guy that's going to get them there anyway. They take out a couple of gun emplacements, and again, this is pretty great because they've just landed in a foreign country, and they get right into it. They go right for the gun placements. He has a strategy. Okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And it just earns him the respect of everybody else, because instead of sitting on his laurels and things like that, there are a couple of characters that kind of go off a bit and don't necessarily follow orders, and a little bit gun happy, gung ho, trigger happy. Gung ho and trigger happy as well, I was kind of saying. So yeah, he's got to deal with kind of that, but at the same time, they've literally just landed in a war zone. You can't go, oi, dude, you can't do that. He's going to shoot you in the head. You don't know what some of these crazy people are going to do, but it's getting that sense of calm, getting that sense of order, which is kind of what he kind of introduces. Yourself, from the second episode, what are your highlights, thinking points?
As you say, that parachute sequence right at the beginning actually made me think of 2018 sort of war horror film based around exactly the same time period of the D-Day landings, called Overlord. I can't think whether I've ever mentioned it on pod before, but it starts out as a fairly standard World War II film, you think, but then they discover a German experimentation lab, and there's crazy stuff. So again, it's not a new thing, but I mention it because that film has one of the best D-Day landing sequences I've ever seen. In its opening, it's absolutely fantastic. However, it's basically just this. It's basically this, and I had no idea when I watched Overlord. And it's just that crazy thing, isn't it? Particularly, in the modern day now, and I'm sure, obviously it's been going on for years because films have been around. But if you see something in something and you think that's awesome, if that's the first time you've seen it, for all you know, that's the first time it's ever happened. You don't know that actually what they've just done is looked at the Band of Brothers sequence and gone, hey, that's really fucking cool. Yeah. I bet with modern CG, we can make that look even fucking better. And it does. But it is the same exact sequence, pretty much, that they use in this. And I was like, wow, it looks awesome. And it was ages ago. A point that you made in the first episode that only really started coming to my mind at this stage was authenticity. And as you say, production value, that sort of stuff. It's they're in that again in the flying sequence. Yes, okay, some of that CG because there just weren't that many. There aren't that many planes of that type flying anymore.
Yeah,
so you can't do it. Fine. But like you said, when they land on the ground and stuff, all the the wreckages of the planes that are around, a lot of that looks genuine, like actual prop stuff, production design stuff, and all the forests and all this. It just feels so real and gritty, like like you said. But it was at this point where I literally wrote the word authentic keeps coming to mind, because it was a sense of authenticity that I was getting more than anything. At this stage, I was personally, because I like I say, I come to it new, and we'd had 2 episodes, and the first episode isn't focused on any one person really, is kind of bouncing around, and so there's a lot of people to try and meet and get to know. At this stage still, I was more following the plot than I was the characters. I was still getting my head around, oh, hang on, no, I can't remember your name, but you were in the last episode in that sequence in the background.
Sure.
And obviously this builds the more it goes and the more you get to know the characters. But that's why at this stage my notes are not so much on character, because I was getting the overwhelming, I was getting the feeling from the other parts of the show at this stage. And then it's sort of episode 3, 4 that I began to see, that each episode was a different thing, its own thing, and potentially used it different story construction. But also that the characters were then starting to shine through. I noticed when Malarkey was in the background, I didn't need them to say, "Hey, Malarkey," I was like, "Oh, look, Malarkey's there with his two buddies. And then there's that person over there, and yeah. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But again, at this stage, I was kind of part of me was a little bit like, I sort of feel like I've seen this in a way. I've seen plenty of stuff where people are getting trained at camp, and I've seen the D-Day landing sequence done a few times. So just because of the nature of what the first two episodes contained, there was a little bit of me going, I want to get past this bit because I feel like I've been here and done this. What comes next? Because that's the stuff I know far less about.
Mm-hmm. So from there, we obviously go into to episode 3. So again, this is them. Easy Company has now kind of been put a little bit more together. A lot more of them have kind of connected up. Easy Company is actually a thing, as opposed to just being scattered around the northern area of France. They kind of get their shit together, but unfortunately they obviously go into battle. They do lose a few men. The majority of this episode kind of focuses on Private Blythe.
Indeed, this is, like I say, this is the point where I was starting to say, okay, so this is around a character. So we're going to follow this character for this episode.
Yes.
So then it was much easier for me to go, cool, okay, this is Blythe. I'm going to get to know Blythe.
Yes, which is Mark Warren, who I'd seen in many, he's been a British actor in many
He's another
things
face that, I knew from stuff and looked him up and was like, oh yeah, you've done
and
the Brit
you
stuff.
look back and you just think, Mark Warren, and you just kind of go, wow, this was a huge thing for a guy that age, an actor of that standing back then, to be front and center of a huge show like this. That's a big ask of somebody, and I think he really does knock it out of the park as this kind of I think he's the epitome of this soldier who really has just been thrown in the deep end. He's like, yeah, I'm here and I'm doing my job. But he suddenly gets there and it's this kind of like, he doesn't really know what's going on. He's just kind of a little bit shell-shocked, a little bit post-traumatic stress. Already at this stage of the war.
Yeah, when he hasn't really experienced a huge amount at this point. And not saying that isn't possible, by the way. I know that PTSD is very possible from the smallest events, but I feel they did it this way to illustrate how little you need to have experienced war to feel the psychological effects of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's because that's the thing. You see him and he's obviously going through some stuff. He's just kind of looking off into the distance. They're like, Blythe. He's like, yeah, and eventually they're in the middle of battle, and Winters is just kind of like, come on, Blythe, lay it on him. And it's just like, again, just showing he can see that this guy is a little bit reserved and he's not all there. But it's like, you know what, we're in a war zone. He's like, Blythe, get your fucking ass in gear. Do what you need to do. You're a soldier. Do what you. And he does. He comes alive, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. Again, it's one of the harsh ones because it ends with them kind of sneaking up on a house. And a sniper being there and just kind of taking Blythe out. We learn that he does, he does survive at that point, but he does. It's never. Well, I mean, according to the notes here, a never corrected producer's error states that Blythe died. He didn't. He actually continued to serve in the army until he died as a master sergeant in 1967.
Oh,
so it was one of those things. Yeah.
I've got a note right at the end of the episode that went, oh, Blythe did die.
Yeah, and this is the thing, like, because I'd watched this before and I'd read a book on it and stuff like that. I was always like, well, hang on a minute, I've read that Blythe doesn't die, and so this was the kind of, I think it was Wikipedia was just basically goes, they basically didn't correct it, but yeah, he actually survived and didn't die. He still gets a Medal of Honor. And again, it's that scene like at the end with him in a hospital. And there's other people kind of scattered around and are all like, walking up with medals, and they're like, is it really fair that you get a couple? And he's, he might die, and he's only got one. And a Purple Heart, sorry, it's a Purple Heart.
Yes, because they're almost joking, aren't they? That one of them's almost joking that he goes back out into the field to, get shot in the foot or whatever, to come back so that he gets a medal but doesn't die, and then he goes back out and does the same sort of thing again. It's sort of implied, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, this is, again, this was the one that kind of showed we had, although we'd seen in the first one, training. The second one, okay, landing in Normandy. We didn't see too much in respect of like deaths and horrible stuff going on in the war. This is where that kind of begins in episode 3. Like casualties begin to mount up.
Yeah.
The fact that they're there now, it's like, okay, we're embedded in the war. Episode 2 kind of got them landing there and getting a foothold. This begins the actual kind of war itself, and that's where
the campaign, if you like,
exactly,
moving across. Yeah, it's Canontan is the place they're attacking.
Yeah,
in this episode, it's the assault on Canontan.
So your thoughts?
Well, yeah, that's where I've started. So the assault on Canontan, I think, is absolutely fantastic. It is gritty, it's tense, dramatic, and it feels real. It feels authentic. Again, because of the production value, because of the costume design, because of the quality of the acting, because of the Foley work. Yeah, it just all comes together. There's no one thing that I think I can pick out from this to say, yes, you are the reason this is so fantastic. It is more than I have ever known in my life, because I know of many films I can think of where I would say the ensemble cast makes it. But this is the total ensemble. It's not just the ensemble cast that's making it. It's the ensemble cast combined with the production design, combined with the sound work, combined with it's all of it together. The direction, the production, the writing. It just is all coming together to make this thing feel so much more dramatic and real than anything I've encountered before. I quite like the sequence with the lieutenant. They're talking about a lieutenant. It's one of your little moments of levity, as you say.
Spears, Lieutenant Spears.
Spears, yeah. That's right. Thank you. At this stage, I didn't know his name. I just knew he was the lieutenant. But yeah, they're sort of doing the Chinese whispers stories about what they've heard him do, and there's a little flashback and stuff to him supposedly finding a load of Germans and then maybe killing them. Did he? Didn't he? I don't know. Ooh. Yeah, but it's funny again because, as you say, in this early stage, legends are being formed.
Yeah.
Pretty much after D-Day, D-Day formed the legends of many a lieutenant and corporal throughout the army, it would seem. And there is someone with a tale to tell about one person or another. I tell you what, there is a bit in this that absolutely shocked the heck out of me and it just made me physically jump when I was watching it, is because it's so out of the blue, but so true to life and realistic, I guess, with what could happen. There's a bit where someone wakes someone up for a shift change.
And stabs
and he just gets up and starts stabbing him. And it's not like he just stabs him once. He's stabbing him and stabbing him and stabbing him. And then he goes, oh, shit, it's one of my guys, and backs off. And I was like, fuck, no, don't die. I like you. That's horrible. But true, I guess, because you're on alert the whole time, aren't you? You can't, even though you may want to sleep to rest, your brain must be in such a state that it is constantly on alert, just in case while you're sleeping, something happens. And oh god, thankfully the bloke didn't die, but it did absolutely shock the heck out of me because it just came out of nowhere. The battle towards the end, there's a good couple of battles in this one. Or I suppose it's one battle that sort of goes through the whole episode. But I found particularly the second half of the episode of the battle, and this isn't a bad thing. It shows me that it's coming across authentically and realistically to me. I was exhausted. I felt actually exhausted by the end of the episode. I even got a sense of relief when the battle was over, because I think they have to retreat from this one, don't they? But
yes, they do. Yeah,
I actually was relieved myself personally, not for the characters. I felt a sense of relief because it was calming down the freneticism. I'm going to go with that. If it's not a word, I've just created it. The freneticism it has just kept my heart. It must literally be my heart rate and adrenaline is pumping. Is up while I'm watching the episode because it is invoking a physical reaction in me due to the drama on screen. And I guess that's why people really like this show, isn't it? Because it's actually really pretty fucking good, isn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of what you aim to achieve with a TV show, you know.
Yeah. But I mean, it's one of the again. One of the most poignant things for me is, again, going back to the great Scott Grimes, who plays it really, really well as Malarkey towards the end. So he kind of goes into the. So they've obviously been relieved. They're back. They're back in England. So he goes to a house to go and pick up his laundry and kind of go and pay. And she's like, "Oh, while you're here, could you possibly take this person's? I think he must have forgot it." And he just looks around and suddenly sees all these names on all these packages of all the soldiers they've just lost. And that's the kind of thing that kind of hits home from him, because he's suddenly like, he just takes a moment and he's like, yeah, I'll pay for that one. And then she's suddenly like, oh, have you heard about this soldier and this soldier? And she just kind of reads out names, and you just kind of go, fucking hell, they've only just started.
Christ, yeah, no, the sequence you mean, where she's collecting the laundry.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, that nearly broke my fucking heart. That did.
Yeah.
That
and that's the thing. It was like when they were, again.
And, sorry. Go on.
No, sorry. Again, so one of the last things, literally, because this is the great thing. Again, when the episodes kind of end, there's always a little blurb or something like that kind of says. And this one, again, I've made notes and things like that. This one kind of says, after Easy had been pulled off the line, they'd lost 65 men. So that's 65 men at this point. I mean, obviously, the whole world loses millions and millions of people, as a result of this whole fucking thing. But this is it. You're just like, my God, this is.
Well, yeah, but that's from one company, isn't it?
This is it. Yeah, one company.
From one company, that's a huge amount.
And like I say, Blythe is listed as dying, but he actually survives and it goes on. But sorry, you're about to say something as well. Sorry.
Yes. It doesn't matter. I can't remember. Carry on.
Okay.
It was to do with the point we were discussing at the time. That's why I jumped, and I forgot to write down what we were discussing at the time, so I could come back to it when I'd let you finish. So it's my fault. Doesn't matter.
That's all right. No worries. So we move on to the next one, and so Easy Company and all the guys they've obviously been relieved from the end of the previous one, so they're still in the UK. They're kind of just enjoying a bit of downtime in a good old English pub, which you love to see. American good old English pub having a pint. So there's a bunch of new recruits that are kind of there, that are essentially replacements, which doesn't go down well with everybody, because they don't, they're not exactly happy about new recruits coming in. They're not the veterans and all this kind of stuff.
And again, you can you can track that back to their training. They were trained together as a unit to be the best. Now they've got people coming in who have been trained in other ways by other teams. You don't know anymore that the man next to you has got your back.
Yeah,
is the feeling that seems to sweep across them.
So they find out that they're going to be moving again, and basically telling them that. So this is one of the, again, there's some great names which I really love in this. For the operations and things like this. This one always made me. So this was Operation Market Garden.
Yes, Operation Market Garden. I like that. Eindhoven, isn't
like,
it?
Okay, where are we going? Oh, you're going into Holland. Market Garden. Okay, that worked. To kind of go in and kind of try and help liberate a city, which was under the command of British forces at the time. So I mean, it's. Again, so they're all preparing to jump and stuff like that, which is hilarious again, because you see some of the guys who are experienced in doing it, and then the guys who aren't, which is funny. And then it goes well. Like, this is the weird thing. You kind of go, okay, they're going to jump in. They're going to jump into a shitstorm. And they don't. They jump in, and the whole city's like, yeah, round of applause. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
We were expecting a little bit more resistance.
In my notes, it says, that was quick. Eindhoven's liberated? Question mark?
Yeah. So obviously the Germans had kind of buggered off knowing that this was all coming. Again, there's some pretty harrowing stuff going on. Again, impact of the war itself, where you get a load of women that are just kind of Dutch women being put down in the street and having their heads shaved and kind of being mocked,
and
because
being stoned and all that sort of stuff.
Because been friendly with the Germans. We'll leave it at
stuck
that.
with the Germans, they suspect. So.
But the thing is, like, they're stood around, all the Americans are stood around. There's nothing they can do. It's whether they agree with it or not. There's, it's not really your place to say
No,
or
I
do
think
anything.
one of them gives something to one who is has a baby, doesn't he? Later on, he sees one with the shaved. She's got the patchy shaved head, and she's got a baby
Yes.
in her arms. He
Yeah.
gives her some of his ration or something later on to show that the Yanks, don't necessarily agree with what's happened.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
yeah.
I've got to be honest. My immediate thought was when I saw that, I thought, well, how do you know they weren't raped by the Germans? Because you shouldn't be doing that shit if they've been raped by the fucking Germans, because they didn't have much choice in that, did they? So I just feel this. I mean, obviously, I don't know I assume that was really what happened. It's always difficult when you're watching something based on, but if that's really what happened, then I think the Dutch proved themselves to be potentially as bad as everyone else in that situation if that's what they were doing. But it's interesting without knowing the full story, isn't it? Which obviously
this is it. I mean, it's the stuff that went on during the war that nobody talks about and stuff like that.
It's which we get to, don't we? But
the fact that they show the fact that they show the severity of this, and this is the thing. It's the realism.
Yeah,
you
like you say, they don't pull their fucking
shiny
punches.
film and stuff like that. Hide it. They would kind of hide this stuff. They go, oh, okay, yeah, there's a resistance and this, that, and the other. They wouldn't show the everyday people, which is this kind of thing. You've got like the leader of the resistance movement, who's just a general kind of guy, like a shop owner or something. Oh yeah, we're the resistance, and you kind of look at him and go, you've got a bunch of troops here. You're the resistance. But yes, that's exactly how it was. I mean, the French resistance was instrumental in taking
Vive la resistance!
He's a vive la resistance. Instrumental in taking down the Germans in France.
Indeed.
If it weren't for the resistances across Europe, half of the Allies wouldn't have been able to do half of what they did because they needed the information and stuff like that. So
yeah, exactly.
It's very, very important. But this gets to one of the absolutely, I say, beautiful, brilliant battles. So they're going in to this town. And straight away, kind of like a guy takes a sniper, and you're kind of like, Christ, okay. So they kind of draw the tank out, and so they just kind of go into this town, and it's just like you've got the British, who is just like, look, I can see there is a tank over there. I can see there's a tank over there.
Is brilliant.
Well, I can't see him from here, so if I can't see him, then I'm not going to do anything. So he drives up. Guess what? He gets blown up by the tank,
fucking
and you're like,
stupid.
You fucking moron! He literally told you there's a tank there. He can see it, and he's like, well, if I can't see it, it's not there. And you just think, well...
And he was even saying, okay, you can't see it, so shoot through that fucking wall there, and I'm telling you, on the other side of that is a fucking tank. Yeah. So shoot through the wall.
Yeah. So it's...
Didn't make us look very good.
And he's like, well, sorry, I can't destroy property unnecessarily. What?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I can't destroy property unnecessarily. All right, then. So eventually it all goes to shit. That again, they lose. They lose more people.
Is this the one where they use Bull for a bit?
No.
Is it the battle where Bull is caught up in? There's one where Bull gets caught up in a. No, it's later. Sorry.
Yeah,
it's later. Yeah, sorry.
That's fine. So Compton is this is the great one. So Compton is kind of walking away, and while retreating, gets shot in the ass, which is but Compton, he's just hilarious because he just gets shot in the ass, and he's just like, you just can't believe it. Which again, he's being lifted and carried by like 3 guys. It's just hilarious. But they sustain quite a number of casualties, and they're kind of a little bit disjointed at this point because the Germans have captured the town, and they're not going to get it back. And it's just kind of like, this is with Bull. This is with Bull because Bull gets left behind. This is with Bull.
This is Bull. He gets left behind and then ends up in a little barn with
he does. That's
a family,
yeah.
That's the one.
We don't find out until the next one, but yeah. So
no apologies.
Bull gets separated from the company because they're trying to retreat. There's tanks all over the place. He goes one side of it and kind of ends up hiding in a sewer as the Germans kind of approach this town.
Yeah.
And so he's left behind, and they don't know what happens to him.
And then at the end of the episode, he just sort of rides in on the 4x4, doesn't he? And they're all like, "Bowie!"
You're jumping an episode ahead. That's an
Am
episode
I?
ahead. Yes.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I thought
He's
the next
stuck here.
episode was.
No. He's still in the town. At the end of this episode, they've retreated.
Oh, right.
Easy Company have retreated because the Germans have swept over them. Because the English were basically being a bunch of dumbasses and not listening. The tank kind of screwed them over, so they have to retreat. Bull gets separated and gets stuck there.
Yeah, I remember now. It's just, in my notes, I've got the next episode as being focused around a character, so I've forgotten that the other bit was part of that as well. I mean, the only other note I have, like you say, it's there's some great stuff in there. There's some ridiculous stuff with the, like you say, is the Brits just not fucking listening. James McAvoy popped up in this one, looking about 12.
Yes.
And he lasts about as long as I would expect a 12-year-old to last in war as well, to be fair. So that was nice to see him, and then I said goodbye. But yeah, no, it was
but he kind of did well with Damian Lewis there again. Like
you say, he was there to make it was a character to make a point, and
exactly.
He
It was like,
well
okay, this is an up and coming actor. We'll give him a bit of prominence with this one. But again, it was the fact that he was one of the replacements, and that was it. It was not everybody looked at them as just replacements, and the guy who just is replacing my dead friend who died a little while ago. It's like, no, these are soldiers. They're still here for the same one. So so when he sends him on a thing, he's like, okay, go over there, and then he runs through and tripwire, and boom, he blows up. You're kind of like, oh, James McAvoy.
Yeah. Nice.
Any other notes on this episode?
Not really, to be honest. Like I say, the Eindhoven liberation seemed quick to me, but no, that's fine. We talked about that. Yeah, I've got no other notes on that one now.
Coolio. So we're now moving into about halfway through now. So episode 5. So this one is now Winter's kind of given a full report. This is kind of
this is a whole episode based around Damian Lewis's character, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where again, this is one where we follow him. Is this the one where it starts with him running up to the top of a hill and stopping and looking down at something, and then it goes back and tells the story that leads up to that? If you know what I mean, because I don't want to say too much just in case I'm wrong on the episode.
This is the one where he kind of, I think, he goes for a jog or something and comes back, and then he walks into his quarters, or his and Nixon's quarters, and Nixon won't wake up because we haven't really touched on this because he's a bit of a drunk who's been drinking
Nixon
his way through the war.
Is another one of those actors.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
I can't remember his name now.
Ron Livingston.
Thank you. That's the one.
And he's just kind of been drinking himself through the war, and he's asleep, and he won't wake up. So Winters kind of comes in, and he's like waking him up. So he just takes a cup and just throws it at him, and he wakes him up. He's like, "Oh, what did you just throw at me? That cup? Oh, that was my piss, man!" And so he's just been waken up by his own piss, which is hilarious. And then that's where Winters goes, and then decides to kind of write his report. So it kind of flashes back to kind of telling them about what's happened and the wounded and things like this, where they found a company of Germans and stuff like this, and he's like, okay, get the troops together, we're going to go scout it. So they do, and Winters is part of this, and this is the great thing, like he is front and center of this episode, like leading his men, leading the company. And he decides he's going to order a charge, which he's going to lead. And this is the great thing in the episode. He's like, okay, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to throw the smoke, and as soon as the smoke goes, come up behind me. So he throws his grenade out and goes running up, and off he goes. But there's a delay on the smoke, so like it takes like an extra 30 seconds for the smoke to go off, or probably not as long as that. So they're all kind of huddled down, waiting. And they're like, "No, you can't go until the smoke's gone." And the smoke finally goes, okay, now we go. But he's like way ahead of them.
Yeah.
And so he gets to this crossroads and then just picks up his gun and just starts firing and just goes to town on these guys. And you're like, okay. And then everybody kind of jumps up and stuff like that. But it was it's like a surprise attack, and they just don't see him, and they just have no idea of what's coming. And just to see him there, it's a bit crazy. So while this is all going on, as you say, we've got Bull, who's back at the farm where he was left behind. And while this is all going on, and they're fighting the Germans over here. He's kind of fighting for his life. He finds a family who come in there, and he manages to shush them. And he's like, okay, it's fine. And I think they realize, okay, he's not a bad guy, he's a good guy. And then he hides them away because the Germans come in. And it's that thing, he's basically kind of like huddled down. He takes his rations out of his gun and stuff like that. And it's again, it's the methodical thing of watching this guy sitting in a hut waiting for death to come to him, essentially. And the Germans surrounding him and him kind of fearing for his life. And eventually it's that silent battle between him and the German, which he, inevitably wins, and kind of leaving these people alone to then go by the end of the episode, kind of hike himself back a little bit, and finding out that some of his friends had come back for him because they were like, you know what, I don't like the idea that we left him behind. So, you get a few of them trundling up to come and get him. And that's like you
and
say,
they're told at one stage that they don't do it, aren't they?
Yeah, they're categorically.
They're told, no, we're not going to go and get him. He's dead. Yeah, I like the fact they go.
Yeah, and the fact that he comes back, like you say, and by the end you've kind of got Winters who's gone through all this stuff. They've taken a load of prisoners, and again, showing the depth of Winters' character. They've got all these German prisoners, and he's kind of looking at his guys, and he's thinking, are all these German prisoners going to make it? So he grabs, I think it's Joe Toro or Joe Toya, sorry. He grabbed Joe Toya's gun, grabs it, empties the clip, put one bullet back in there, gives it back, and he's like, okay, you can get them back with that one. It's like, there's one bullet in that gun. I'm not letting you kill them, you get them back. And it's just that great scene. He's just like, I am not letting you just go haphazardly killing people. And it's, again, we're in war. There are rules to war
absolutely.
that you kind of have to follow, unspoken rules, so to speak. And like you say, and then when Winters is just kind of looking out and he just suddenly sees Bull on the back of a Jeep kind of riding in, just kind of smiles, looks at him like, I knew he'd make it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you bastard. Like, so yeah, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, yes, this is exactly the one I was thinking of, because it starts with Damian Lewis running, and then he stops on the top of a hill, and he's got his gun in his hand, and he looks down, and there's one German dude, and he sort of pauses for a minute, and the German dude's looking at him, and they both sort of share a facial expression, and then the German dude goes for his gun, and he shoots him, and then it goes backwards, and it tells us the story leading up to that point, and as you say, that point is actually with the bit they don't show you is after he shot that first one, it's at the end of that big charge. So he has arrived at a full field full of fucking Germans, miles ahead of his gang. So he's on his own, as you say, shooting, just gunning them down. Almost reminds me of Predator, where they're gunning down the jungle. There's a bit where they're just like firing into the jungle, trying to kill the predator and clearly not hitting it at all. But it's like the opposite of that. He's shooting into the field and he's just hitting every German going. I feel this one, particularly that sequence, I almost feel like it is the Winters character. That's one of his legends. Because there's almost because the talking heads at the beginning of the episode are saying, I don't know how he survived it. I don't know how he managed to fucking do that. I still to this day don't know how he lived. And so then when you watch the episode, you're like, oh my God, this is the telling of his legendary story then, of that time that he was ahead of the charge and got to a field full of 100 Germans and shot half of them and managed to not die and stuff. It was really interesting to see that. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I mean, again, the fact that this is all based on a book and the accounts of each member of Easy Company and stuff like that, we know that nobody's going to go out there and go, oh, I did this, and try and bolster their own reputation in the war. This was war. This isn't kind of social media in this day and age where everyone's like,
well, you got a brand.
Okay, I say I'm going to do this. I'm going to up the story a little bit and kind of proclaim a little bit more. No, they were, if anything, they're probably underselling the shit that they did because they don't want to kind of admit, this is kind of how many people I killed in my life. They're all soldiers in war, and you kind of have to forgive them for that. But like you
do
say.
Sorry, go on.
No, please, no, please do.
I was going to say, you're right. You're absolutely right. Thinking about whenever you hear, particularly these gentlemen talking about their experiences in war, they never, ever sound proud
No,
of anything that they've done.
No.
They never sound happy about it necessarily. You know, there's no... And if anything, they want to make it sound less than it actually was.
Yeah.
You know, they almost want to diminish their achievements.
Yeah, I think,
and it's an interesting... I don't have no idea why that would be the mindset, but
No.
I get that. I get why that might happen. I have my own ideas on why they might feel like that and want that to be the case. But it's just struck in my head because it was an interesting point you made.
Yeah, I mean, from personal experience, I know that my granddad, who did fight in World War II, I mean, as a young kid, I knew that he'd fought in World War II, and I knew that my nan was, in Britain as one of the ladies, and doing her part as well. So I know that both of my grandparents had been instrumental in the war efforts way back, but my granddad never really wanted to talk about it. And now, when you're younger, you don't really understand the impact of that and the significance. But when you watch some of these things, the older you get, the more mature you get, and you watch some of these things, you realize the harrowing shit that they genuinely had to go through.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily want to kill people. That wasn't
No.
necessarily what they wanted to do, but they were put in a situation where they had no choice. And I know my granddad lost many of his friends, fighting side by side with them, and he genuinely didn't want to talk about it. And I understand now. Back then I couldn't, but now I understand the experiences that they went through were beyond anything that we could think of today. Modern warfare today is not the way as it was back then. And I think what makes it even more poignant is I try not to jump too far ahead in the terms of the series, but one of the characters that I really love in this, who kind of goes under the radar. Again, we haven't necessarily talked about too many characters. We're talking about the plot. One of the characters is Shifty. I don't know if you remember Shifty. He's kind of their resident sniper, who saves so many fucking people's lives throughout this entire thing. They're just like, Shifty. If they see a shot or a sniper, and they're like, okay, I'm not sure whether we can get that shot, or okay, we need somebody to go in and scope it out. It's like Shifty, and it's great because he's a fantastic character, and he really does. He's clearly like a southern guy who was a good hunter way back when. And I'm trying not to jump too far ahead to the end of the series, but he does say a line that's absolutely stuck with me since I've watched this show.
Cool.
And he's talking. Sorry?
Don't say it. Don't say it. Because that's cool. Don't say whatever the line is.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it. He's talking to Damian Lewis's character about the war and about the impact of it. And it's just that quote, which I will get to when we get to it, is very poignant, and it basically speaks volumes, I think, to every single person who's ever fought in a war. We'll get there, but yeah, this was one of those ones where he didn't rise. He didn't raise the elevation of that story. This was the story told from everybody else's perspective and probably downplayed. And it's like, guys, you don't realize he literally ran out into a field with hundreds of Germans, and yeah, he could have been killed, but wasn't. How the fuck did that not happen? Because if he'd died, the impact of Easy Company as a whole, who's to say?
Yeah, that's very true. Was James Marsden in this episode? Looking 12 years old. I thought there was a guy who looked like James Marsden, and I'll be totally honest, I'd forgotten I'd made this note, and I haven't looked up whether he was even in it on IMDb. But I think I saw James Marsden looking about 12 years old. This is the one where Jimmy Fallon turns up, which is, Jimmy Fallon.
No, Jimmy Fallon's the next one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I've written Jimmy Fallon ? Oh, fair enough.
No, I'm pretty sure Jimmy Fallon turns up at the bit before Bastogne, because
Bastogne is the next episode.
Yeah, so the next one is kind of where he crops up to kind of help give them some ammo and stuff.
Yes. I mean, this episode was my favorite so far because it properly focused on one character, got me to know them really, even better than I did already, and helped to orient me to everyone else. So by the finish of this one, I was like, damn, this is awesome, and this is that one's my favorite episode so far.
Mhm.
But we're only up to episode 5.
We are only up to episode 5.
So, as we're only up to episode 5, ladies and gentlemen, and we are currently ticking towards an hour and a half of this podcast, I think we shall call it at that one. Make this one another lovely 2-parter for you. And then we'll come back for an episode 2.
It'll give you the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been enjoying this podcast, to perhaps watch episodes 1 to 5, or maybe watch the whole of Band of Brothers, so that when we come back for part 2, you'll be part of the whole conversation.
Exactly. You'll know what's going on. So, on that note, I didn't do the admin at the top of the show today. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to get involved with us, you can go to the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/the Screenmasters. A few weeks ago now, I posted a little film quiz up there based on movie titles with numbers in. Shoot over to the Facebook page if you want to have a look at that and have a go. I shall be posting. I probably posted the answers by the time this goes to air. And yes, at the top of that page, there is a pinned post with all the links to all the different places you can see us. At the minute, while we're doing back to the audio-only versions, we're not uploading them onto YouTube, but obviously all the previous content is available on YouTube. Should you be interested, please feel free to go and check that out at bit.ly/byteback_YT. You can also email us directly at screenmasters@bytebackmedia.co.uk. And in all cases, the byte is like a computer byte, not a food byte. Anything else to add, my good friend?
No, just hope everybody's keeping safe and well during these difficult times, and please do share your thoughts and feelings about what you've been enjoying on the downtime view-wise. If there's any pods that you're thinking about after having watched anything, unless it's Tiger King, in which case you can go fuck yourselves. Sorry to put it bluntly, but yeah, please do.
You have during this episode made yourself open to watching all of the Starship Troopers films, so
yeah, that I can deal with. That I could deal with.
Really? Do you know how many there are?
3?
Do you know how much the quality is on them? Yeah, there are 3, I think, or there might be 4. I can't remember.
3. I know that the main boy from the first one comes back for one of the later ones.
Casper Van Diem.
Casper Van Diem, yeah, that was it.
And
the
writer
Denise Richards, back when she actually looked hot.
Yeah, like Wild Things, Denise Richards.
Yeah, Wild Things.
That's
Denise
when she was hot.
Starship Troopers, Wild Things.
Yeah, and then I don't really know what happened.
She was like a Bond.
Oh yeah! Oh
Christmas
no, she was
Jones
she was Christmas Jones, Fluffy. She was Christmas fucking Jones. Why did they call her Christmas Jones? Everyone asks. That is so that you can make the joke at the end where he says, "Huh? I thought Christmas only came once a year."
Yeah.
Fuck off! God damn you! God damn you! World is not enough. God damn you! God damn!
Perhaps that may come up.
Foreshadowing potentially for November, everyone.
In the year. Maybe she'll top the Bond girls list. Who's to say?
I'm not sure I'll have gotten over this by the time we get to November. I'm really not, everyone. So brace yourself. Brace yourself.
Yeah. So that's that. So yeah, like I say, keep safe, keep healthy, everyone. Let us know your comments, etc. On the Facebook page. Facebook.com/the Screenmasters.
Indeed. So, yes, everyone, thank you very much for listening. We shall see you next time. For now, I have been Bav.
And I've been Fluff.
And this has been Screenmasters.